you got to know how to read them. And this, I could shoot a 38-hour video. There's things from body language, tonality, but I'm just going to give you one strategy, which I find to be the simplest to start with. It's like a lexicographical, I believe that's the word. It's word-based, vocabulary-based, okay? What I mean by that is people give clues in their language. In fact, there's a whole set of scientists that all they do is study language. One of my mentors is Jonah Berger, who I think he teaches at Wharton now. He went to Wharton. He wrote a book called Contagious which is a really good book. I recommend you read, by the way. I was just on the phone. I do mentor calls. I pay for mentors, by the way. I spend anywhere from 50 to 200,000 a month on being trained by smart people, whether traveling to them, putting them on retainer or whatever. So a lot of this stuff I'm teaching you, I'm giving you for free. It costs me a lot of money to learn. It's just talking to Jonah Berger, and he just did this huge multi-year study specifically around things like customer support and even sales, about language, how language matters, your choice of language. But I'm going to go a little further. You can listen to people's language and their choice of words and learn a lot about whether they're a P, an S, an A, an S, or an E. For example, it's pretty simple. When you're trying to sell something or close a deal to an E, they bring up the word fear a lot, or some derivative of that word. So they might say like, well, I want to sell this house to you, but, I'm just worried I'm not going to be able to, I'm worried about what the taxes are going to be. I just was doing a deal actually with a guy. I've been buying up I buy raw land, either put it in agriculture or I develop it. So I buy a lot of land that's in the path of development or good agricultural land. I own some food brands. And so I was closing a deal with a guy. It wasn't a big deal. It was like $500,000 deal. But it was strategic because it was attached to another piece of property. So I wanted this deal to go through. And I had other people doing the sales for me. I had one of my lawyers negotiating. And he couldn't close the deal. Like, we worked on this deal for like a year. And finally I stepped in. And I hadn't trained my lawyer. Lawyer's more trained in law. And he's not a black belt. I tell everybody, you want to become a black belt in sales. And to be a black belt, you need a lot of training. You need a lot of hours. I'm probably maybe more than a black belt. I definitely have more than 10 or 20,000 hours in sales. Malcolm Gladwell, what did he say? You need 10,000 hours to be a master. And then they kind of amended that and said you need 15,000. Then they're like, you need 20,000. Well, I got 20,000 hours in sales and persuasion, and my lawyer didn't. So the deal stalled, and I stepped in, and I began to just listen to the words. Listen. And I realized I was dealing with an E. And how did I know? How was I able to read this guy? Well, he goes, finally, and by the way, I would say he's an EP, practical emotional, because most people aren't just one thing. The reason I think he was a P is because he knew his numbers very well. When I said, how much do you owe? Because I wanted some owner financing for this deal. I didn't want to have to pay cash. I like to use my cash. The whole point of real estate is don't use your own cash, by the way. When you look at non-leverage returns on real estate, it's not really that good. Business is better. So when I buy real estate, I want to do it pretty much cash. So I go to this guy and I'm like, hey man, what's up? Like, I'm just listening. I don't actually say. I'm thinking in my mind, like, I guess get him talking. By the way, all sales, get him talking. And he's very practical. He's soft-spoken. He's slow to speak. P's usually don't interrupt you. A's will interrupt you because they're action. He didn't interrupt. So I was thinking it was a P, but then he said one thing. Because everything he was saying, I was like, why can't we close this deal? Like, he wants to sell. Then he brought up, he's like, I'm afraid of taxes. And when I hear the word afraid, I go emotional. P's aren't afraid. Practical people aren't afraid. They're more computing. They're like, my taxes will be 37% of this amount. P's are more like Spock in Star Trek, not Star Wars. Or R2-D2 or C-3PO in Star Wars, to keep the analogy and metaphor going here. A's have no fear. That's why they're A's. They're like, seize the moment, seize the day, carpe diem, right? S's are so jolly. They have low fear, but E's have fear. So he's like, I'm afraid if I sell it to you this way, I'm gonna have a ton of taxes. So I just said, let me think on it. And I came back the next day, I said, I won't say his name. I almost said his name. He might watch this video. Some of these guys watch my videos. I go, Mr. X, I just realized something. If you finance this deal, we can spread your taxes over way longer, which is what I wanted to do. Okay, this is like the ultimate lay down, exciting sales situation for me because I'm going, is he gonna, I hope he hears what I'm saying. But since I was speaking his language and I brought up fear, I said, I know you're afraid of taxes, man, that sucks. I'd be afraid. And I start repeating the words back to him. It's not mirroring. Mirroring I don't really agree with, but it's like a dimensionalizing pacing that I call it. And I just said, I think, look, yeah, I'd be afraid too. I got a way. And then I switched to P. I'm like, here's a practical way. I'll pay you over time. I'll pay you over 5 years. This will defer a lot of the taxes. We structured the note. You don't have anything to fear. And he said yes, like literally within 5 minutes of me saying that, and the deal closed. I closed it when my lawyer couldn't close in a year or something. Other people had worked on this guy too. This property had been sitting there, I think, for sale 6 years. And because I understood how to read people and how to adapt, and I understood how to get people to hear him, I didn't manipulate him at all. He was excited. It's the ultimate sales situation where they're like more excited than you are. And deal's done. I signed that deal. I actually posted it, I think, on my social media, the HUD form. Closed the deal. It's a beautiful piece of land with a lot of potential. A lot of potential. So that's how you start. You listen to words. So P people will speak in numbers. I'm listening for numbers. If they start saying 33%, if it's my tax bracket is this, and if they sound very robotic, I go P. If they're using robot words, they're P. If they begin action-based words like, hey, like, I emailed you yesterday. What's taking so long? Then you know you're dealing with an A. Impatience, A, action. If they say, what do we need to do to make this go forward? Or if they're a little bit just aggressive at all, aggressive choice of words. In fact, I remember one of the first times I ever did a phone sale. I had built, I started doing it. I started as an entrepreneur when I was a teenager, and I was one of the first people to do use the internet to get customers, for sure, because I was one of the first people on Google AdWords. We're talking way back in the beginnings of the 2000s, and I built a funnel. I was like, if you want to, I forget what it was either life insurance or like financial planning, and this guy, I still remember, I think he might still be a customer. I sold the company to my business partner when I moved back to California, but he might still be a customer. Anyway, I get on the phone, and the dude was like, he had filled out a form asking me to call him, but he must have forgotten. So when I called, he's like, why are you calling me at night? And I almost like got scared and gave up, but I'm an A. I was like, I just told him, I was like, because you told me to. So I didn't realize, I knew nothing about pace, but in hindsight, he was an A, because that's something an A would say, bluntly, like, why are you wasting my time? Why are you calling me? It was like 7 at night I called, because on the form, he's like, call me after 6. So I just told him, as an A back, I was like, because you told me to call you right now. What am I supposed to do? And when A meets A, he understood me. And he was like, oh, okay. And he turned into my first big customer. I remember I made like $10,000 on a deal with him, which was a lot to me back then. And so unknowingly, now I would know how to deal with that. If an A comes at me with an A, I usually hit them back with the A vibe. If somebody hits me with the jolly, and you may call that mirroring, again, we'll touch, maybe if I have time, I'll touch on what I think of mirroring. There's advanced mirroring, which I believe in, and there's the cheese ball mirroring, which I disagree with. So I hope this is showing you how matching their language that's already in their brain, their primary driving energy, you become very persuasive to them.